What we're dealing with here is a total lack of respect for the law.
On July the 12th, within hours of a kidnap raid by Hezbollah soldiers, Israel launches airstrikes into southern Lebanon. Hezbollah fires dozens of Katyusha rockets across the border into Israeli towns. Casualties on both sides are severe, and the conflict escalates into all-out war.
Right now, Israelis feel under attack. Katyusha rockets fired by Hezbollah have been landing here in northern Israel and in other towns. And Israel's message to Hezbollah, to those firing the rockets, will be this: Israel will go after its enemies, no matter what the consequences.
The international community criticizes Israel's airstrikes for being disproportionate and causing heavy casualties in civilian areas.
That seems to be an excessive use of force in an area with so many civilians.
If it's an excessive use of force, that makes it a war crime.
It makes it a violation of humanitarian law.
Hezbollah is accused by Amnesty International of breaching humanitarian law by deliberately targeting civilians. Israel claims that behind the scenes, Iran is actively supplying the militants.
We consider them as a long arm of the Iranians. They have 14,000 rockets that are threatening Israel, and they are supporting terror.
Israel's troops repeatedly find evidence of what they say is Iran's involvement. Inside an abandoned Hezbollah bunker, Iranian pictures are on display alongside the group's own leaders. Throughout the fighting, Colonel Efroni claims Iran's fingerprints have been visible around Hezbollah.
What we found during the fighting, a lot of ammunition and anti-tank missiles that come from Iran. New ammunition, not something that you got 20 years ago. Fresh missile made in 2004, 2002. Someone had to bring them to Hezbollah. It's not something that you can buy in the market. It's not something that you can buy off the counter. There's a cooperation between the two, of Iran and Hezbollah, and you can see it everywhere.
Despite its overwhelming military superiority, when the guns fall silent, Israel still cannot claim complete victory. In the wider Middle East, the celebrations of what is seen as Hezbollah's Islamic victory spread from Beirut to Cairo and Tehran. But in Israel, intelligence is emerging of what is perceived there as a far greater danger than Hezbollah. A few miles from Israel's beachfront, Arrow interceptor rockets stand ready to shield the country from incoming missiles. The launch system has recently been upgraded, and it can now deal with the possibility of nuclear warheads, potentially fired from Iran. Israel is incredibly guarded about its defense systems. This satellite control room is a high security area, which keeps constant watch over Israel's surveillance satellites. This is a rare view inside. For over a decade, Israel's military
aims to turn the world into its very own enslaved global market, and the plan is well underway.
So earlier this month, Ismail Hawaja sat sick with grief. The Israelis had killed his wife Huda, he told CBC, with an explosion at their home. As is often the case, his story of abuse by soldiers couldn't be verified. The army had nothing to say, and what was happening inside the refugee camp was off limits to foreign reporters. But not to the Israeli media. An Israeli camera went right along with the soldiers, right into the briefing, and right into the Hawaja home. The army blew off the door and inside found Huda Hawaja mortally wounded on the floor. Ismail Hawaja clearly thought at that point his wife would live. He begged the army to let an ambulance through. There were delays. The camera captured the terror of the woman's young daughter and her brother's attempt to stop her from showing the soldiers her fear. After the mother was finally taken out, one of the soldiers spoke to the news crew. "I don't know what we're doing here," he said. "Purification, maybe. It's dirty here. I don't know why a good Hebrew boy should be here so far from his home." Another soldier said he approved of the operation and that it really wasn't so bad. The soldiers then tore the house apart, evidently looking for weapons. In another scene, a girl begged soldiers not to demolish her home's wall, but in vain. Soldiers commonly smash walls to get into adjacent houses. This tape was actually not supposed to be aired. The arrangement is this. All three networks here agree that if the Army doesn't like what's filmed, the footage is never broadcast. In this case, the Army decided this tape was too embarrassing, too damaging, so it ordered it shelved. But this past weekend, Israel's Channel 2 decided to break the embargo. And the Army and the government and a lot of viewers did not like what they saw.
So, on the one
this
side,
Israeli official, who strongly condemns Palestinian censorship, had this to say.
I would have expected, a little bit more, I would call it self-censorship on the part of the Israeli media